Good evening, Browns fans, and welcome to the Gang of Three. My name's Barry. I sort of try to orchestrate this thing, and I am, as always, pleased to be joined by Pete Smith. How are you doing, Pete?
Righteous. I feel righteous today.
Beware the wrath of Pete tonight. And Lane, how you doing, sir?
Hanging in there. How about you guys?
Just hanging in. Just hanging in. That's all we can do, really, at this point. All right. Well, let's get into it. First thing I want to do is offer up our best wishes and positive thoughts to our good friend Bernie Kosar. He underwent a liver transplant today. He's feeling better. Says he's doing well. And in general, I just want to say it has been fantastic to see the outpouring of support and prayers and financial support for Bernie over the course of these last few weeks. He's a great guy, and he really deserves it. One of the things that you can do if you're interested and you have the resources is donate to a GoFundMe, which is helping to support all the expensive medical treatment that Bernie has had to go through. Lane, I know you're good buddies with Bern and know that he really appreciates the support.
Yeah, he's real appreciative. He loves Browns fans. Can't talk enough about the fans, the support that they've given him, not just now, but over the years when he was playing. It means nothing more to him than being here and being around Browns fans and talking about the Browns, talking football. Came through a rough surgery. He's doing all right. The next 48 hours or so, you have to worry about any kind of complication, but as of right now, he's doing all right.
Well, that is good to hear. I just took Lane off the screen. There he's back again. Well, fantastic. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into what the Browns have been up to. One of the things that they have been up to is starting a fifth-round rookie quarterback. They're going to start him most likely, but he got inserted against the Ravens, finished 4 of 16 with 47 yards and a pick. It's not very good, and he acknowledged he did not play very well. Kevin Stefanski confirmed that Sanders had no first-team reps before he was put into the game, and that is, to some people, a huge deal. I guess my question to you, Pete, is that lack of first-team reps, is that a big deal, a small deal, or no deal at all?
It's entirely normal for most any football team, particularly for the NFL, because you have so little time in a given week to practice. So you have to make the most of it, and you are trying to win football games. So you have to get the guy you expect to be out there as many reps as possible. And I go back to 2018. Baker Mayfield did not get a first-team rep until after he came in the lineup for Tyrod Taylor, who suffered a concussion, and beat the Jets. That next week was his first regular practice where he got first-team reps with the offense. That's just how it goes. And you've seen any number of former Browns backup quarterbacks who have been jumping at the chance to sort of get out in this topping. I don't think it's to be cruel or anything to Shedeur Sanders. I think it's just because of the way it's been sort of talked about has had them sort of eager to sort of clear the air on how this stuff works, because that's just the nature of the beast. And by virtue of what, with Dylan Gabriel in the protocol, I would be shocked if Shedeur Sanders isn't going to start this coming week. So he's going to get every rep. And I'm not going to sit here and, as you said, it wasn't good. There's a lot he has to work on, which we sort of knew already. But he's going to get every rep. If he gets better, great. If he doesn't, well, then that's sort of where it is.
Right. And one of the challenges from the media perspective is that Shedeur was not visible throughout the season to the media. You can't see how he's playing in practice because folks are sort of hustled off the practice field very early within the practices, to keep all the top secrets secret, or whatever the reason is. But Lane, what had you been hearing prior to Sunday about how Shedeur looked in practice?
Same story that we hear every week, that he's looking okay, he's progressing, getting the reps that he gets the extra time after practice. Nothing out of the ordinary that we haven't heard for weeks. I don't anticipate anything changing. Him getting the opportunity this week to get full first team reps will make it for an interesting show on Sunday. As of right now, it's the performance was not good. Brown's performance overall was not good. And hopefully with a week of practice and with the first team and a game plan tailored more towards him, maybe we'll see a little bit of what the mystique of Shedeur Sanders is.
Yeah, well, one of the challenges is that they're going up against Max Crosby and the Oakland Raiders, who can put a little bit of pressure on a quarterback. The run defense over there is pretty good too. So the conditions which existed on Sunday afternoon, Pete, look like they're pretty much going to exist again next Sunday. The Raiders do have some vulnerability in the middle of the field and so forth, but the Raiders defense is not just going to roll over and give Shedeur time to set up in the pocket.
The likelihood, teams are going to blitz him until he beats the blitz. They're going to send everything they've got and either play cover zero or some kind of disguise coverage behind until he beats them, because this was something that was there on film in college. He doesn't always know what he's looking at, and his tendency, rather than to throw the ball away, is to try to extend, move backwards, and often makes his problems worse. And when he's not sure what he's looking at, the other thing he tends to do is, instead of throwing, he actually will then not throw. He will specifically pull the ball down because we saw him throw a pick, and that's not normal for him, because usually he's so risk averse in terms of actually throwing the football. The risk he takes is but with his own body and just getting killed. But until he's able to do that, that's what we're going to see over and over and over again. The Browns offensive line gets a ton of crap, most of it deserved. But once Shedeur went in the game, they just sent everybody, and the offensive line didn't have a chance.
Yeah, why not some more screen passes if there's going to be tons of blitzes and so on and so forth, Pete? That seems to me to be a possible solution to help him out early in the game.
They tried with throwing the ball. They tried to throw one to Quinshon Judkins that the Ravens immediately had a defender sort of feather back and take that away. And Judkins mishandled the ball. Otherwise, it would have had the potential to actually be a fumble. The larger problem is there was at least one situation where Shedeur Sanders had a wide open check down, which probably could have gotten 10 or 20 yards to Quinshon Judkins. He just didn't see it. He didn't take his eyes off his primary read and missed it. And that's unfortunately where we're at right now. Is hopefully he's going to get faster and be able to progress through his reads quicker, because those plays are there. And these are things we've talked about with Dillon Gabriel too. And this is the thing I would say. Everything I saw Shedeur Sanders do on Sunday, I've seen Dillon Gabriel do at some point. So I'm not going to sit here and say that the Browns have to go back to Dillon Gabriel as soon as possible, because he's not making these mistakes. He's done all of them. Shedeur Sanders sort of speed ran through all of them in the course of about 5 minutes. But whatever, chances are he's going to get another chance to get at this, and hopefully he's going to improve. He's just got to have his eyes on the right place, and right now he does not.
Yeah, Lane, thinking back to that game, obviously a lot of the things that we had been worried about with Shedeur came to pass. But in that final drive, he showed a pretty good arm. He can get the ball downfield. What are the qualities about Shedeur that make for 4, 16, and 47 yards in the pick that we saw on Sunday.
Well, in his behalf, he's accurate. That's the one quality that he has that stands out for him is his accuracy. After that, it's a troublesome situation because the game looks entirely too fast for him right now. That may be because he's not getting time reps. We're going to find out. He still bails on the pocket. He's not where he needs to be in the pocket. And you can raise questions that the offensive line was so terrible that there were no options. To a degree, that's true, and to a degree, it's not, because there were still opportunities to throw the ball, get it out. He holds on to the ball too long. He bails. On the pass to Gage in the end zone that they were trying to, score on, he had 2 crosses underneath that were open. Could have went and got the first down and kept that thing going. There's just little things that you look for, and he hasn't been on the field enough. I mean, a backup quarterback should know where to go with the football. Get the ball out. It's all these things. The Browns are all hyped up that he's progressing, he's developing. Well, yeah, I would say compared to when we seen him last, he looked better. But he still has that kind of issue. And he has happy feet when it gets muddy in the pocket. And with a quarterback like that, he's inexperienced, this is a tough thing that he's dealing with right now, because you have an offensive line that you can't be confident in. In that game, they were just, once he came in, the play calling was more pass oriented. And he missed some throws, made a couple nice throws. You're just in a position that you just don't know yet what he is, and you're not going to know what he is after starting a game next week.
Yeah,
because that's just part of the process. But you hope to see those improvements when he steps on the field next week. After getting those reps, after experiencing that first opportunity coming in, to see what he can do with the game plan is tailored to him. Right now, it's a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get. This season was about growth and development and maybe seeing him towards the end of the season. Well, now you're in here just past the halfway point and he's on the field. It wasn't what the plan was. But it seems like everything that went along with this team from training camp on hasn't gone with the plan. The plan just seems to fall to the wayside. So right now, this is what you got. And you need to see them rally around him as a coaching staff and as a unit and see what they can do.
Yeah, part of the problem is when you're thrown into a situation like that, as opposed to having time to practice and to game plan, where hopefully he's going to have a script and everything and do those things where he knows where the ball's supposed to go and the schedule he's supposed to throw on. When you're thrown into the lineup like that, you tend to default to your base training, and his base training coming out of college was what we saw. You can't trust his offensive line, despite the fact it's still way better than anything he had in college. He wants to trust himself over anyone else, so he thinks he can extend plays against NFL athletes. He can't. But so thrown into that mix, you get sort of the worst possible version of all the bad habits. But as Lane touched on, he can throw the hell out of the ball, and that's why he's here. I mean, if he didn't have that, he wouldn't be on the roster at all. And he made some really good throws. He's going to continue to tantalize with his arm. That's always been his major draw. He has the thing that always separates him from Dillon Gabriel is it's not just the way he throws, it's the amount of throws he can make. Dillon Gabriel is a reasonably talented passer, but he's got a very small tool belt relative to NFL throws.
Right.
Shedeur Sanders has a vast amount of tools. He often knows when and how to use them, which can carry him a long way if he makes the steps necessary to improve these other areas. But for anyone who thought, and look, he had a chance, obviously, if he made a heck of a move to avoid the one pressure and got open. And if he made that touchdown pass, this whole conversation might be a little bit different. And, a whole lot more people are going, look, see, this is what he can do and all this other stuff, which a conversation I'd be happy to have, but the issues are real. And it's going to take time to figure those things out. And I've always thought it was going to take more than just working in a season. I think it's one of those things where, you get together with a private quarterback coach and you do these things where you're trying to make sure you are stepping up in the pocket as opposed to working backwards and those types of things. So there's a lot he can improve upon. And I've said from the beginning, I thought 2 years was about what it was going to take for him to sort of either prove he can be an NFL long-term starter or out of the league entirely.
That seems like the right time frame. But, as pointed out in the chat, certain draft experts were absolutely convinced that Shedeur Sanders was a first rounder. I was hearing all over the radio a week and a half ago, you got to start Shedeur, you got to play Shedeur, all this sort of nonsense. How did the draft and media establishment lane get it so freaking wrong? Now, I'm not long-term dismissing the kid, but he's not NFL ready, and that's quite obvious from what we saw and what little bit of what we saw in the preseason. But there were a lot of swings and misses on Shedeur Sanders. There's something about him that attracts people, and I'm not sure why.
Well, his personality can attract people. He's a bubbly guy. The only problem is that, as we talked about, going back to the beginning of this process well before the draft, that we just didn't see it. We didn't see the it that everybody was clamoring over and Mel Kiper was clamoring over. We didn't see the it. And we talked about it extensively. That, yes, he's accurate as hell. But all the fundamental aspects that go together with that don't equate.
Right.
He was a guy that if you're going to draft, you're going to have to sit and develop him to learn concepts and everything. And that's what they've done. That's what they're doing. And it shouldn't be a shocking revelation to anybody that he walked on the field and went 4 of 16 yesterday. I wanted to see him play because I wanted to see with my own eyes what I've been hearing. Well, I got to see it. And I'm curious to see him with a week under his belt where they game plan for him. And I'm curious to see what he takes from Sunday's game and what he and they change to show some kind of competency on Sunday.
Right.
Right now, he's not anything different than we talked about in the winter. It's the same guy. Maybe his technique and there's some refining that's been done. He's learning, but he still doesn't match the speed of the game with his process. And that may be just getting thrown into the fire. So we're going to see Sunday. And there's not much else you can say about it. It is the great unknown until we get to see it live.
Right.
The elements of the draft process, there were things that worked for him and things that worked against him. Most people tried to blame the issues he had at Colorado on the offensive line, which was not good. They undercounted just how good his receivers were, assuming that he was either an equal part or doing more of the work than he actually was with Travis Hunter and LeJontay Wester. And they had 4 legitimately incredible athletes at Colorado, even if only one of them got drafted super high. What we're seeing from Colorado is they don't know what they're doing. Just legitimately do not know what they're doing. His offensive coordinator, Pat Shurmur, who I absolutely adore, was a great coach here. Fantastic. And I'm not sure how he lost play calling duties at Colorado, but he did. They don't know what they're doing at the quarterback position. And he was not trained properly. And he was and there was this element of people treated him differently because of his father. Well, his father did him no favors. He was given everything. And that's not to say he's not talented, but he was literally given everything. After Jackson State, They walked into Colorado and said to everybody else, basically, get out, and we've got quarterback covered. Well, okay, and I get it because they turned around and won more football games, and it looked great because Shedeur was sort of there, and he retired his number and all this other crap. But then when it came to the draft process, he goes to the Shrine game, and he's all set to work out there, and then doesn't, which flouted NFL rules there. That made people raise their ear, sort of perk up and go, wait, what is he doing? He did the same thing with some of the other elements of the draft process. And on its face, that sort of allowed people to then go, well, the NFL is just mad at him because he's not playing by their rules. Well, actually, what really happened is the NFL then went, what are we not hearing and seeing by him not doing all these things? So they dug deeper and found out that there were a lot of real problems. And obviously, one of the most famous sort of examples was now ex-head coach of the New York Giants, Brian Daboll, had him in for a meeting, and he had no idea what he was doing. He didn't know anything, and it was unprepared. Is again a product of his dad and the people around him did not prepare him for the biggest job interview of his life. They blew it off, and he was punished for it. And on that element, I don't put that on Shedeur as much as maybe he should have known better because he's a 23-year-old young man trying to make it to the NFL. But he was basically told by people around him, don't bother. And then you wonder why these things happen. So people dug deeper and they found out the truth. And he benefited from being in a weak quarterback class relatively. After Cam Ward, it was a wide open field for a while. People weren't up to date on Jackson Dart or some of these other guys. And if Shedeur Sanders was going to be in this class, I've seen some people make the preposterous argument that he'd be the best quarterback by far. He's not even on the radar compared to the guys that'll be in this class. With the ability they have from Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson and those guys. So there were a lot of weird things that sort of worked out in his favor and then ultimately sort of hurt him with the NFL. So, was I surprised that he went as late as he did? Yeah. I thought he might go in the second round, maybe in the late first round if a team got desperate. When the Browns were up for those 2 picks in the second round, did I have my ears perked up thinking maybe they're going to pull the trigger here? Sure. But as we've sort of learned more and more about this whole process, it's really difficult to be shocked that it went the way it did, especially as we found out later that he told teams not to draft him. Of all the arrogant ideas to sort of come into the league with, he told the Baltimore Ravens, no, thank you. What are we doing here?
Yeah, and certainly at Baltimore, assuming that Jackson stays healthy, he would have had time to develop as opposed to coming into Cleveland where he's thrown in game number 10. Speaking of Cam Ward, question from Lathan here. He said, how much different did Shedeur look compared to Cam Ward? I see the same mistakes. If Cam Ward is not getting this heat, why does Dylan and Shedeur? What's your take on that, Lane?
I would say that Ward has caught heat for his mistakes and issues. I would also say that Ward has produced more consistently or equally when you compare it to a Dylan or Shedeur Sanders. Bad situation in Tennessee. I mean, just a garbage situation. Head coach gone, offensive line coach. They're changing all kind of things up down there. And he was another guy. While he was the consensus first quarterback in everybody's opinion, there were things that he needed to work on and develop to get to that next level. Right now, would I rather have Cam Ward as my quarterback than the other two? Yeah, I would. But besides that, he's in a situation that isn't very conducive to his development either. So you're talking about young quarterbacks getting thrust into the league, thrust into positions, thrust into playing with so much indecision and inconsistency surrounding them that you have to wonder, are they going to get it right? Are they going to ruin this kid? Or is it going to be the train wreck where you see guys like Sam Darnold and stuff a few years later, Mac Jones, these guys getting to situations, systems, and have gained some experience where that true talent has the opportunity to come out in the right system. That's what's bad about the NFL game today is that you're thrusting, you're pushing, you're pushing, you're pushing, and that's what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. It leads me to the question, Pete, and we have all off season to discuss this, but got a letter from a fan, yesterday who said, my thoughts in the bloviation were uh, similar to his in terms of sort of needing to set up the cockpit before you put in the pilot. The Cleveland Browns have mega holes on their offensive line. They don't have a legit wide receiver room at this point. Are you tempted at all if let's assume we don't have the first pick and can't get Mendoza and the Jets outbid us or whatever. Are you tempted at that point to look at offensive tackles and wide receivers sort of set up the team around the eventual quarterback? Or do you think that as Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, they don't have time for such luxuries and need to get their quarterback this offseason?
Well, look, if you're in position to take a quarterback you love, you got to pull the trigger because you just don't know when you're going to have that opportunity again, especially if you want Barry and Kevin Stefanski. You certainly don't know. But if they are, for some reason, out of position, am I inclined to give up a bunch of assets to go up and get that player? No, I'm more inclined at that point to then even trade down from that top pick again, amass more assets, and to just throw a ton of stuff into the offensive side of the ball, offensive lineman, a premium wide receiver, and build up everything around them until I'm in a position to get that guy. But for the sake of argument, right now, to me, it's a two-horse race. And obviously, again, I say this as there are still plenty of college football games to be played and plenty of time left but just from right where we sit at this point in time, based on the guys who are expected to come out, it's you either, whether it's Fernando Mendoza or Ty Simpson. Personally, I like Ty Simpson, but I would be thrilled to have either one based on what I've seen to this point. If I can get them and not have to give up anything to do it, I'm doing it, and I will figure it out. The one thing that works for the Browns in their favor, for as badly set up as the offense is in so many ways, they have so overstocked the defense that they can send Jim Schwartz home in April and just be like, we'll see you at minicamp.
Right.
They cannot afford to spend much of, if anything, on that side of the ball. So they have the ability between free agency and trades and the draft to just do everything possible they want to build up the offense to give them the best possible chance to succeed for it if they're in a position to take a rookie quarterback.
Any thoughts on that, Lane? Basically, the question was, if you're Andrew Berry at this point, aren't you thinking about, as I put it to Pete, you set up the cockpit before you put in the pilot, get that offensive line, get that wide receiver, so you're not in a position of where the Titans are and the Browns are, of putting the quarterbacks into a really bad situation where they're just going to get hammered.
Well, you have to build that structure around the quarterback position. So it's really going to depend on what they can do in the offseason first before they ever get to the draft to see if they can help secure that problem. Because it's obvious your two tackle positions are it's a waste of time. So, you get to the draft and you got to see what you've done in free agency because they're going to have such a high pick in this draft, and you need a quarterback. And if they're sitting there at 1, 2, or 3, and that quarterback's sitting there, it's hard to say no.
Yeah.
I mean, you need an offensive tackle. You're going to have to do something about that, and that's another area. If you can get a franchise type left tackle, and now you're on the scales. You're weighing and balancing. What do you need more? What are you going to do? So I think that the long road leading up to the draft is going to provide the clarity because right now, the necessity under center, necessity along the offensive line is great. I'm not drafting a wide receiver where they're going to start the first pick they have in the draft. I'm not looking at a wide receiver, but I'm looking at an offensive tackle and a quarterback. There's just really no option. They have to address those issues.
You're going to
Yeah.
know before we ever get to April what they're doing. I mean,
Yep.
they're either going to have traded for somebody or signed somebody of some note. If they're going to not take a quarterback in the draft, they will signal it. It'll be, akin to the Jeff Garcia signing type deal where, you took yourself out of the running well before the draft ever got there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's got to be a fascinating offseason in general for this team. And we will learn a lot during the free agency period. Let's get to some of the questions here that we have from the chat. This question came in early on, and DSUCIU01 asked, is it even possible to evaluate the offensive line coach and his plan within this putrid offense? So, as you've said, Pete, many times, they don't have the players. How can you really evaluate what the offensive line coach has done this season?
How do I do it? I can't. I can't evaluate really what Mike Lindgren does, other than the fact he sounds real good in press conferences. I like he talks, but I mean the Browns from inside the building certainly can. I mean that they did that last year with Andy Dickerson, and clearly he couldn't do the job as it sort of became apparent. I don't think that's the issue with Mike Bloomgren. He's a guy who's done this long enough. He's got a ton of experience. But this is the same thing where people will still say that Bill Callahan can come in and perform miracles. Well, if that was the case, he would have done it for Tennessee the past 2 years, and they're awful. I mean, they're worse than the Browns on the offensive line. And that's not, I mean, Bill Callahan's a legend. He's one of the best to ever do it. At some point, and they've actually spent picks on this, but at some point you have to have the guys that can do the job. Now, in terms of, how you're going to try to evaluate Bloomgren as much as you can, you're going to look at what KT Leviston is sort of trying to learn. You're trying to see how does Bloomgren's plan work week to week with the amount of shuffling he's had to do, and just the overall preparation and guys being able to make calls and do those things. But in terms of just being able to sort of watch it and go, how's the offensive line coach doing? It's not really realistic in this scenario, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, we have another question about coaching, and that is at the wide receiver position. It is difficult to point to a wide receiver who has come in and been developed by the Cleveland Browns organization in recent years. Tillman, showed some flashes during the last game. Corley seems very interesting. But the question from Chris here that I will give to you, Lane, is, evaluating the wide receiver coaching given the materials he has to work with.
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, most of the talent that's played out and done well has been, talent he's brought in. They've had trouble at the wide receiver position, drafting wide receivers. They've had issues with it. And, and Tillman, it's a situation where he's injured. It just happens. So you don't get that long stretch of play under one system with a quarterback to help develop these guys. And it's twofold, because all the change and all the issues that they have at surrounding position, it all piggybacks onto other areas, and what people can look at and perceive that they can't develop a guy, or this guy sucks, or why doesn't he do more? A lot of times there's other factors that even before it gets to the wide receiver. In the case of Tillman, and he's probably the best one to name, is they believe he can play. They like him. The injury issues are something you start raising a red flag. Is, are we going to get by these? Is this something that's just going to continue to happen? And you're looking at a team at Jerry Jr.'s year one, and you definitely need another one, or a very good two, to help in this process of developing the structure within this roster to go somewhere. And they just you just look at it, and you got the same wide receiver coach, and you got just wide receivers that walk through here and come in, and we just don't know how capable some of them are because the offense just rolls off the rails so easily in Cleveland that you never get to really find out what these guys really can do. And that's problematic, and that's part of why this team has been as bad as it's been, is that you just have a lack of consistency, and it's easy to point fingers that the coaching sucks, the player sucks, the scheme sucks. Well, you can just throw that all in a big vat because, yes, everything has sucked, and you got to figure out why. And you're sitting within the worst 25-game stretch of, north of Hugh Jackson here. So you better figure it out quick because there's some guys who can ball, but if you don't get them the ball, they can't ball.
Right. There seems to be no singular locus of suck with the Cleveland Browns. I mean, it is many different things sort of operating in unison, creating an offense that's this bad. I don't know if you can blame it on one person. It's really a team effort. One guy who's shown a little bit of a flash here, Pete, is Malachi Corey. And Chris asks, will we ever see him get more snaps, get more involved in the offense as a receiver? We've seen him do very well on some jet sweeps, some handoffs and stuff like that. But do you like his potential as a receiver to maybe play that slot receiver position for the Browns?
Well, I'll address both of those things. I won't lose any sleep if Chad O'Shea is no longer the Browns receivers coach. But if I was to defend him, I would simply point out this. Amari Cooper had career years here. Jerry Jeudy had the best season of his life here. And whatever you think about his ability to develop wide receivers, none of them have gone to be successful elsewhere. And along those lines, wide receiver is an incredibly difficult position to pick in the draft. And I would immediately point to what the Buffalo Bills are dealing with right now and the amount of consternation that fan base is going through, and looking at Brandon Beane's record at drafting wide receivers. It's awful outside of Khalil Shakir. And they just benched their second round pick, Keon Coleman. It's really difficult. There's one team in the league I can tell you who can draft wide receivers. One. It's the Minnesota Vikings. And even the Minnesota Vikings, who are unbelievable at drafting wide receivers, are doing it in the first round. Browns haven't done that since 2016. As for Corley, he plays a lot more than you think he does. They use him as a jet player. And this is something Kevin Stefanski's wanted forever, and he seems to have found it. Malachi Corley can do all the things that Cordero Patterson could do when Kevin Stefanski was the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, and he loved having this component. And there are times when Malachi Corley gets those jet sweeps, but they do a lot of false keys with him where they send him in motion to get the defense to go, holy crap, he might be getting the ball. And it works, and they create some misdirection with that stuff. I really like what Malachi Corley can be, but the problem is I think he's always going to be a wide receiver 5 or 6. He's a great size, love his strength. He runs through defenders like a running back with the ball in his hands. He punishes tacklers. He has no idea what he's doing running routes. And they don't ask him to do much yet. And that's going to be sort of a long-term project. If he ever figures it out, he's going to be a really, really nice player. But that, all the promise I'm talking about is why the Jets were willing to take him in the third round of the draft. And, he's already produced more yardage with the Browns than he did in his entire first year with the Jets, and why they proceeded to cut him. But none of what he's doing adds up to something you would want to use draft capital on outside of late day 3. So I hope he can be a player. I hope he can sort of develop these things. But I literally will continue to say this. I love what he does, and I'm excited about him, which sounds ridiculous because I'm talking about a guy who fits in very nicely as wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 6 in your depth chart. Right.
All right. Let's go to a question from Carlisle. I think I know the answer to this, Lane, but we sort of talked about it before. But the notion that in these last 7 games that you will see the emergence of Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders to the extent that you sort of say, let's focus on the offensive line in the 26th draft. You've disappeared from screen, Lane. What do you think?
they're drafting a quarterback somewhere in the first round. Unless they pull another shocker out and decide to draft a running back and linebacker with those 2 picks. I do not see them not coming away with a quarterback unless they do something crazy in free agency or trade. You know, you just don't know. But me, I'm going to get a quarterback and I'm going to get a lineman with my 2 picks in the first round, unless there's somebody sitting there that I can't bypass.
Right. Yeah, I mean, offensive line is such a need, and wide receiver is also a need, but I'm not sure how you rank them. But we would say, Carlisle, that the odds of that are pretty low based on what we've seen right now.
All right.
What's that?
Blutarski's grade point average is about the right number for that.
Yeah, very good. Animal House reference. Appreciate it. Speaking of linebackers, Kid Wilson here says that Andrew Berry nailed the Schlesinger pick. I don't think
Schwartz pick.
The Schwartz.
Yeah.
Somebody nailed it. Yeah, whoever it was. And then he says, can you imagine JOK and Carson? Well, you know, I got to give props to Andrew Berry here, because we've got another linebacker, Devin Bush, who is really, started to emerge, right? And so Andrew Berry is responsible for Bush coming to town. He's responsible for drafting JOK, and he's responsible for drafting Schlesinger, even if he had a lot of input into that. The guy can pick linebackers, that's for damn sure. But it takes us to the question of the defense and the play of one Myles Garrett that I cannot go this entire show without mentioning. He played like a man possessed on Sunday, further making his case for Defensive Player of the Year. 15 sacks and 17 tackles for loss. Both lead the league. He's got 7 more games to add to that, and it looks like Michael Strahan's record of 22.5 sacks is, wobbly at this point.
Isn't it a great thing having such defensive tackle talent lined up next to him?
I can't. Like, Myles Garrett is phenomenal, and I can't say this enough for people who like that's how they watch LeBron is how I watch Myles Garrett. I will watch every snap he ever plays on football. He's that special. Having said that, where he's actually getting better this year is actually his run stop rate.
Yep.
His pass rush is basically the same as it's always been. The difference is that he doesn't have to work as hard. In 2023, he had to be Superman so often to make those plays. Or was it 2020, I think, where he went on that stretch where he had like 5 forced fumbles in a game in a row or something insane like that. But what is happening now, there has never been a season in Garrett's career where I felt more like his sacks and production are a team-wide stat than this year, because he's getting all kinds of help. You watch those 4 sacks yesterday. He's getting his teammates are huge contributors to all of them. Mason Graham helped on 3 of the sacks. Isaiah McGuire was at least there for 1 or 2 of them. Mike Hall predominantly responsible for a third one. The interior pressure this team is constantly creating is a nightmare. Lamar Jackson had nowhere to go on all these times. He's avoiding somebody else, and Myles Garrett's able to clean it up. So Myles Garrett is an unbelievable football player. And yet you will hear people who want to trade this man who could easily be doing this for another decade plus. He's one of those people who can play until they're 40, unless something prevents that, like an insane injury. But beyond that, there's nothing that is going to slow him down for the next 5 to 10 years. So this is why Andrew Berry has said, never in my life am I going to trade this man, because all you have to do at that point is, if you can find the quarterback, this whole thing takes off. And my nightmare is the Browns trade Myles Garrett for whatever it is, 15 first-round picks, whatever. And then they find the quarterback immediately, which they didn't have to trade for in the first place. And suddenly they're really good. And everybody's now clamoring, well, we need a Myles Garrett. So don't do it. Don't do what the Green Bay Packers season right now is basically being carried by Micah Parsons. He's the only reason that team hasn't fallen apart because their season has just gone to shambles with injuries and everything else. Myles Garrett, you do not touch this man. Figure it out on offense without messing with him.
All right. Well, Lane has some scoop to go gather, and so he has to bow out. So it's you and me the rest of the way here, Pete. If you can handle that. So let's talk a little bit about the linebacker play as well, because I think Carlisle makes the same point that you were making about the amount of help that not only Myles Garrett is getting, but because of the defensive tackle play. Obviously, that clears out a lot of space for the linebackers, and Carson Schlesinger and Devin Bush are both taking advantage this year.
I think Carson Schlesinger should win the Defensive Rookie of the Year award based on what he's done so far, and I think he should go to the Pro Bowl. And I think that's a major part of that is because of the defensive line play. He is kept clean so much to just be able to flow and go. And these were things like even when I broke him down coming out of college, one of the issues for Carson Schlesinger he needed to improve upon was taking on contact. Okay, so the Browns draft him and then basically say, well, we're just going to take care of that for you and just let you do everything else. And that's largely that. They've literally, man, it's not to say he never takes on contact because you see him do it, but they mask his weakness so much with the scheme they have around him that it's a perfect fit. He is everything you could possibly hope he would be, and he's coming off the ankle injury. I don't know how much that's still lingering with him. He had 8 solo tackles. He had 4 solo tackles on the first drive of the football game. In helping the hold the Ravens to a field goal attempt. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a number of stops on Derrick Henry, got Lamar Jackson trying to scramble out, got the interception where he went over, Mike Hall tips it up in the air, and then Carson Schlesinger basically outleaps the tight end for the Ravens to secure the interception. He's unbelievable, and I don't think the stats do justice for what he's been able to do. But yes, he's tremendous. And Devin Bush has been a great find. He was playing really, really well, and thankfully was able to sort of make up for his past transgression on the holding penalty against the Jets by coming up with a pick 6 this week. And yes, they've got obviously JOK. We'll see there, and then even guys like Mahmoud Diabate and some of these other guys, the Browns really like. They're an embarrassment of riches on the second level of the defense. And this is a team that lost a guy for the season they were excited about with the rookie or that second-year guy, the 6th-round pick from last year out of Mississippi State, was somebody they were really excited about and looked really good in preseason. They've lost, obviously, Jordan Hicks to retirement, which I'm assuming they had some inkling was going to happen, which sort of helped them make the decision on Schlesinger. But nevertheless, and the other part about that is, look, Schlesinger, tremendous player. Devin Bush, all these guys deserve a ton of credit. Jason Tarver is a fantastic linebackers coach and has made the most every time he gets any investment, he makes the absolute most of it. He's an absolute rock star as a linebackers coach.
Yeah. The proof is in the pudding, and we're getting fantastic linebacker play. JOK was developed very well as a linebacker after falling to the Browns in the second round a few years ago. I tell you what, let's take, one of the things I just want to say first before we dive into some of these other questions is we went for years, right, sort of saying, well, you need to get Myles Garrett a compliment on, the other side of the line, to pass rush so that he doesn't get so much attention, right? People were thinking Trey Hendrickson and folks like that. And Andrew Berry really did it, from the interior of the line, right? We have given Myles Garrett that help that he needs to be everything he can be, which is a guy just putting together a staggering record-setting season. And it happened not because we got a right defensive end that is going to get 15 sacks. It happened because we built up through the middle with Malik Collins and Mason Graham this year. And he got Mike Hall as well, who made a good player too. So,
Well, he's one. He's unless something insane happens, he's going to blow away the franchise record for sacks in the season, which is 16. The other part about that is they don't have a frontline defensive end across from Myles Garrett, but they have been able to sort of make it work in the aggregate between Alex Wright this year, obviously dealing with an injury now, and then Isaiah McGuire, and then the guy who another guy who got absolutely killed for his offsides penalty last week. But if you actually watch what he does on a play-to-play basis, Cam Thomas is really good for this group. And so the combination of having those two guys who are primary run stoppers and Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire, either they're playing across from him or enabling Myles Garrett to be more focused on coming in on specifically pass situations. And then you get into a situation where Cam Thomas can be the opposite side rusher. Cam Thomas is really efficient as a pass rusher. It's not what we all dream of, which is getting another guy that's going to be a 15-sack guy across from him. But this is proving that you don't need that guy. You just need somebody who can do their job and be effective, and they've got that. It's not the way we want. It's that money ball in the aggregate approach, but it's working.
Right. And yeah, definitely this year, the results show it. And, I'm not going to sit here and complain about, this incredible defensive display that we're getting this year from the Cleveland Browns being wasted because of the offense, but that's just the way it is. And this defense has got another year or two together, and it really gives you the impetus to fix that offense fast because you've got so much talent accumulated on defense right now that even a mediocre offense could allow this team to be competitive.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is this group is going to be together a little while, and it's unfortunate that we are watching this historic season and they aren't competitive. I don't think it's wasted because I get to enjoy it every week, and they are going to be together. It's not like they're going to blow this thing up next year and we're going to go, what was this defense? It will be together for next year, and most of it, the vast majority of it, will sustain beyond that, most likely. So the moves they made are going to allow it to sustain into the future by getting Mason Graham and Carson Switzer, rookies that can plug into this group, and Aiden Huntington and some of these other guys. But yeah, they've got to get the offensive side of the ball right. But the fact is, hopefully, the defense continues to get better and better, and hopefully if this season is going to be what it's becoming, use it to develop those other pitches, figure out the curveball and the changeup and all the other crap that we want to hear Jim Schwartz talk about other than fastball. Because if they do that and they make those improvements on offense, it won't feel wasted when this group is better prepared next year. And then with a better offense, that now it's a more dominant group overall.
Right. Let's a couple other questions about defense. DeAndre Black asks, what would you add, Pete, to this defense if you could? Where's the one spot you want to reinforce right now?
Well, I mean, listen, I will be greedy as hell and always take another pass rushing edge. But the bottom line is, if I could add one thing, it doesn't necessarily need to be a frontline starter. What I would like to be able to do is add a true center fielding free safety that can at least be a role player. I like what Ronnie Hickman does. I think he's a really nice complement with Grant Delpit. But I'd like to get into a situation where, if they get in second and long and third and long, and the Browns want to run three safeties on the field, okay, they have Ronnie Hickman and Grant Delpit play and can play down in the box or anywhere else they want. But they also get a guy who can play over the top and be that rangy guy who can make plays over the top and do some of those other things. And obviously, they tried that with Juan Thornhill and didn't get the results they wanted. But I would still like that element. Just if it's like, day 3 of the draft and they find somebody they really like and can add that component, or an undrafted free agent, or just a normal free agent veteran that can come in and add that little element. I would like that to be the component this defense gets.
Right. Well, the Browns, had struggled for a while to get that safety, with the signing of Thornhill, who now is visiting Jacksonville, who kicked out Khalifa Lassie yesterday. So they're going through ex-Cleveland Browns defensive backs down there. But one other defensive back that we have a question about is Denzel Ward. And Carlisle wants to know why Denzel Ward is seemingly struggling with zone defense. He's always been more of a man cornerback, hasn't he, Pete?
Undoubtedly. He's always been way better at man. He's got great instincts. He has incredible discipline in terms of where his eyes are and playing the hands and all those other things. In zone, he doesn't always have a great sense of spacing. He doesn't always have a great sense of trying to measure out how far he can play off and get away with it. And the other thing that really hurts Denzel Ward as a zone corner is he's not a good tackler. He's just not. There's part of it is just not much of him. So, I mean, he can throw his whole body at people and it doesn't necessarily do much. And what you end up with is a situation where maybe you don't beat Denzel Ward going behind him, although we've seen that. But if you can throw the ball in front of him and have catch and run where he's the only guy between you and great at being able to come downhill and make those tackles, as somebody like Tyson Campbell, who's a much thicker human being and is a much more aggressive tackler, gives you a little bit more versatility. Now, so there are ways to deal with this. I mean, obviously they've continued to work in some zone stuff, and I get it. Personally, I would just sort of basically say, Denzel Ward, you're always going to be in man. I will structure the zone around you and just have you always be a man corner. But, you know, that's one of those things where I'd love to be in a situation where they can get some trap coverages and Denzel Ward suddenly is able to, you know, fools the defense, jumps a pass, intercepts it, and takes it to the house. Unfortunately, we just haven't seen that, which is sort of unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, it's just never been a great situation with Denzel Ward in zone coverage. And that at times has been a limitation for this defense.
All right. Well, when we're talking about the offensive line, you've said, you know, a couple times on shows with me that you're as interested in the guard position as you are in the tackle position, if I'm not misquoting you here.
Yep.
One of the questions that we have, you know, if you get a guard mid-round or something along those lines, is it possible to coach an offensive lineman up aggressively? You know, the question here from Chris is, do offensive linemen get developed? I mean, if they are mid, can they get better? So we've got a guy like Zach Zenter on the team who has not seen the field all year. Is it possible that the team is developing him and he could emerge next year? Or is this just a sort of a situation where you get what you draft?
Well, I mean, the nature of the NFL with offensive linemen is development. They are all developed. Almost nobody comes to the NFL ready to go as an offensive lineman because they just aren't trained that way at any point. Very few colleges do a great job with college offensive linemen. They never have to pass protect for as long as NFL guys do. The offenses try to get the ball out as quickly as possible and try to minimize their exposure and do all those things. This is where, you know, athleticism and physical tools matter, both in their like foot quickness and strength and all those things. But you absolutely do those things. You have to. That's the nature of the beast. As for Zach Zenter, look, he was drafted, unfortunately, for a scheme the Browns ran for 1 year. He's a heavy gap guy. He doesn't have great agility or foot quickness. Maybe he can improve. I don't love the fit. Maybe he can be a center in that scenario. I think more than likely he's going to end up getting moved somewhere this offseason. Basically the same reason the Jacksonville Jaguars got rid of Tyson Campbell. It's going to be some of those. Obviously not quite the return of that you're going to get there. But you've got to have the people with the necessary tools, movement skills, and all those things to do that. And then they've got to be smart enough and willing to take coaching and all those things to get better. But this is why Bill Callahan's of the world are so sought after, because they are constantly teaching that position. It's huge. I don't care if it's Cleveland Browns, Ohio State, you know, or wherever. That's one of the first position. If you're asking about assistant coaches, everybody goes to coordinators. The next guy, if it's not the strength coach, is the offensive line coach, because they're that critical in success.
Right. That makes sense. All right. Well, thank you for all the questions and topics that you sent us tonight. We obviously talked a lot about quarterback, but we got into the defense, and I really appreciate all the questions from the chat room. Please keep them coming as we get back together again next Monday at 7:15 Pete will be back at you tomorrow at 8 o'clock with a much superior host in Joe Mazzullo. And they will do Pete and Joe at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So from Lane, Pete, and myself, you guys have a great evening. Thanks for watching. And God bless Bernie Kosar. Good night, everybody.